Hey, how's everyone going? Welcome to the stream today, and it's a nice sort of day in Melbourne. I'm gonna get some lunch a little bit later, but before I do, I found this photo of Paris, and I was going to do a bit of sketching this morning and show you in this stream how to portray convincing light. And I think we'll do two types of shadows. We'll do some softer shadows on the side of the building, the left side of the building. And I'm also going to be doing some sharper shadows, maybe on the right side of the building, underneath the building as well. We've got figures, people walking around in the foreground. We've got cars in the back. So much going on. And yeah, I thought this reference picture was quite a good one to practice with, but it's not ideal because I don't like the composition of that building right in the center there, just smack bang in the middle there. It's just a bit obvious, but I think for the purposes of this, for this session, it should be a good example to use. So if you're here in the chats, you're watching, I can see there's about maybe 10 people here. Leave a message in the chats. Let me know where you're watching from. How's your day going? Like I said, it's actually a pretty nice day today in Melbourne. Yesterday it was raining, so I was at home mostly just doing some painting and working on my website. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started on the drawing, and I've got a little snippet of the drawing on the reference on the bottom left hand corner of the screen, but afterwards I will make that full reference available for anyone who is watching along later. I'm gonna have to change the lighting a bit as well, because there's just it's just sort of overcast day, but the sun comes out every now and then. So yeah, do let me know how the audio is going, just so that I can get an indication of whether I need to adjust anything or not. I can see a little preview of it on my screen, but sometimes it does show up a bit differently for you guys. We've got Leslie. How you doing, Leslie, over in the chats? Who else is here? Let me know down below in the comments, and if you have anything that you are struggling with at the moment with watercolors as well, let me know, and I'll see if I can maybe answer some of your questions live. And I think this is a great opportunity because I'm here basically reading your questions, giving you a bit of feedback in real time. So what I'm doing at the moment is that I'm just putting in a little line down here for essentially where the buildings touch the ground. Okay, so I want a bit of a foreground there, but I'm really thinking, do I want to increase the size of that? Have more of a foreground, or just leave it like that? I think I'll leave it. We'll put it just as the reference photo is essentially, but I have given it a little bit more leeway, tiny bit more at the bottom, because I'm thinking I want to put some cars that are closer to the bottom of the scene. Great. How's the video as well? Can you see the drawing okay? Because for some reason, on my screen, it seems a little bit grainy, but hopefully you guys can see the drawing all right. Like, the sun just keeps peeking out behind the clouds, so I'm adjusting my desk light at the same time. Great. We've got Nerida. How you doing, Nerida? Oh, 40 degrees Celsius. That's pretty nuts. We've got Cubs Win from Texas. How you doing? You're new to the channel. I haven't seen you before on YouTube, but welcome. And make sure you paint along today, because I'm really going to teach you everything that I know about painting light on buildings. So there's actually all the shadows on these buildings, sharper sort of shadows, but I'm going to do some softer ones, maybe some slightly softer shadows to the left of the building, just to highlight. Yeah, we'll see how we go. But yeah, one of the big things with painting shadows is you really want to make sure that you keep in the light. So I'll go through that just a moment when we get started. But the most important thing really here is just to get in an accurate-ish drawing. And because this photo is so obviously composed, you know, you've got the building, the center of the building, the entrance of it right in the middle of the page. This actually makes it a lot easier for beginners to draw. So if we're thinking about it, it's just like a rectangle in the center of the page, and I'm holding my pencil down the back of it as well, just to make it a bit easier. And one thing I always try to do is leave some room up the top of the reference photo for the sky. Now I notice in this photograph there's not really much sky there, so I want to increase it a little bit, and if I can, yeah, like lower the height of this building as well, I'm going to do that. And the main one is just this big building right in the center. This is somewhere in Paris. I've been there once many years ago. I don't remember much bits and pieces. It was just raining pretty heavily at the time. How about you guys? Has anyone been over there recently? How is it? I wonder how it's like. There's a lot of, you know, I find in Melbourne there's a lot of French people that are coming over there recently. Seem to like it way better over here. So let's go in and we'll put in this window on the top of the building. And all I'm doing here, guys, is I am just looking at shapes. Yeah, so when you're drawing these bits and pieces in for the buildings, don't think of them as, oh, you know, it's a building. Think of it as just a shape. You know, that's a rectangle, that's a square, that's another, you know, another rectangle there. You know, here's another bit of this chimney here, and, you know, there's a bit of this part sticking out. It's all just rectangles and squares and things like that. We can really get bogged down in this stuff. We can really get bogged down in this stuff. But look, it's important to imply some of this stuff on the top of the building. You know, just little bits and pieces I think would be good. The center part, there's not really much there, but yeah, look, there's a window, and I've just implied that with a little rectangle / square. These three, now I'll probably just put three of, there's actually four, but we'll see how we go. 1, 2, I might only be able to fit 3 in. I can't really be bothered to do all of them. And there used to be a time where I would actually sit down and painstakingly drawing each of these things perfectly, each of these bits and pieces of the rooftop, but I don't have the patience for that anymore, and it's just not my kind of style. I tend to now just go with a more looser style, for good or for worse, but people seem to like this kind of style. I find it more enjoyable, so I'm not, you know, torturing myself over all the little details. As you can see with these buildings, there's so much going on in here, and you can get lost. And this is where people get really frustrated in watercolors and give up, because they just think this is too much. So you don't need drawing all those chimneys and things like that. If you want, put it in if you want. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. We've got Claire as well. How you doing, Claire? I haven't seen you for a bit. How's things going with you? And yeah, what have you been painting lately? Hope you've been doing well. Cubs Wins asking, do you ever use a ruler? I don't, but you can use a rule if you want. There's no specific rule. There's no specific rule. You know, it's good to draw freehand, because if you need to get out there one day and do some sketching out, I don't know, if you're out on the street, or if you're out on in the city or something, you're going to need to know how to sketch. So that's why I recommend people to try to do it by hand if possible. Just gives you that extra bit of kind of tool up your sleeve if you need to use it. I'm certainly not going to be carrying a ruler around with me if I'm outside, but you know, painting outside is not really everyone's cup of tea as well. I like to do it every now and then, especially it's a very nice day today, so I'm probably going to go out and do some sketching. And I don't know if anyone's watching over from Melbourne, but I'm looking to run some actual real life classes here in Melbourne at some stage, hopefully soon. hopefully soon. Now there's so many stories on this bit. How many floors are there? I mean, if we count the roof bit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 of them. My God. I might, you know what I'm going to do? I might just simplify this down. You know, there's 8 floors on this thing, but maybe I'll just let's put 3, something like that, yeah? Just for the sake of simplification. So I'm not spending too much time drawing in all these windows and things. You know, it's up to you. It's up to you, really. The bottom bit here is kind of interesting. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the bottom bit here is where you've got this kind of red shade, and I like this. I really like this, and so I'm gonna make sure I've got I go a bit darker here. Yeah, this red shade that just goes all the way across to the left of the building. Oh, it's actually gone a bit too far to the left here. I'm still half asleep. What time is it for you guys over there? I hope it's not too late for some of you. I was meant to go live a bit earlier, but I ended up kind of dozing off a bit, so there we go. That little shade at the bottom, I like that because it's just got this beautiful red awning on it. Okay, you know, that's the main front part of the building. There are windows, you know, there's a window here, there's a window here. All this stuff, look, because it's just a sketch, I really don't want to bother too much with it. Okay, so just going to put in a few like indications of the windows, just like the line 1, 2, 3. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 windows essentially in this section here. All right, I think I've already kind of over detailed it, but it doesn't matter. You know, here's another building to the right coming down. There is another building here. I like that that there is a tree on the right hand side of the scene as well. I really like that because we can get in a little bit of nature. I didn't intend to do a session on kind of drawing trees and stuff like that, but it's good because I find with all these buildings with the tiny bit of something like a tree or something in it, it just makes it look more interesting. Different shapes, again, more of these bits and pieces of the tops of those buildings. It doesn't matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories for that building. I'm just separating them out. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it doesn't matter unless you're the architect of this building, or if you're someone that's an architect, you're probably not going to notice. Okay, and like I said, the main goal of this workshop today is to show you all how to paint light. My kind of step anyway of painting light. Now this tree, let's get in this tree. The trunk of the tree is important, and comes up. There's the trunk of the tree, and this is going to be interesting because it kind of it's darker in the background, but you've got light on the side of the tree, which is quite nice. And I'm going to just put some branches going up like this, little branches going up into the sky. I will emphasize these a bit more later, but for the time being, we can get away with just a simple little, the trunk is the most important part. If you can get the trunk in all right, the rest of it's a lot easier. Okay, so just get that trunk of that tree. I've got a few more. How are we all doing, everyone? There's some new people joining. We've got Marvel Rose from Texas, 6:30 p.m. Oh, that's a good time. I thought actually it'd be really, really late for you guys over in the States. Maybe over in the eastern part. Fantastic. And Nerida, looks like you know where this is, Nerida. Have you been here? And Claire's saying, doing good on a painting hiatus. Just started getting back into it a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and sketching is a good way to get back into it because you're not putting that pressure onto yourself. You've got to make it fun, and if you manage to make something that you're learning fun, that's most of the battle, because the rest of it is going to be easy. But when I do find when people paint, they just get a bit too hard on themselves, compare their paintings to everyone else's, get too, into perfecting things, and that's when it starts becoming a torturous activity and you stop enjoying it. So remember, just enjoy the process. Try to enjoy the process. Islay's here as well. Dinosaur, this was live too late. I'll watch. Yeah, that's okay. You can still quickly draw along. Cubs is asking, how did you learn perspective? There's lots of tutorials on perspective out there on YouTube. Just have a look at them. Start with 1-point perspective. I found that one of the best ways to learn it is just to go out and sketch in public and recognize, when you're drawing as well, sometimes things don't look quite right. So you might, for example, make the buildings too big, too tall, the people might be too big, the cars may be too big or small. So it's having a critical eye for your drawing and thinking to yourself, okay, does it look like, does it represent what I'm looking at? And if you look at the buildings, you'll notice as you go into the distance, it's hard to see with this one, as you go into the distance, things become smaller. If there's a little bike here, there's a bus here, but if you look at this person in the foreground, they look pretty big compared to the bus, because as you move forwards into the scene, things become larger. As you move back, things become smaller. But it's also understanding and looking at the angles, the lines, really focusing. When you reduce the buildings down, look at the angles in which the lines are. As we go down to the back here, for example, we see the angle of the line, instead of becoming like straight like this one here, it becomes more kind of slanted like that. So really pay attention to that. It does take a long time to figure this out, because it isn't a natural thing that comes to us. We don't go out and we look at buildings and think, oh, this line is horizontal, or this line is vertical, or this one is slightly turning diagonally. We don't really think about that. We have to train ourselves to recognize these things, and it's very frustrating in the beginning, because you look at your scene, your reference, and you think it doesn't actually look like what I'm painting or what I'm drawing, and you can't, and it's so hard to figure out why it doesn't look like that. But with practice, you will get better. This building is like under construction or something like that. So I'm just going to pretend that that's not under construction and put in some floors, simple stuff. Okay. Notice how I'm just getting the buildings all in one big shape. Okay. We don't want to spend too much time looking at all the things in there, because it's a sketch. You want to practice a bit of that perspective, but you don't want to, I don't anyway want to spend all day on the drawing. I want to get started painting, but we've got to make sure that the drawing is accurate enough so that it gives us a guide when we're painting. Your painting is often only as good as your drawing. Okay, that's not to say you spend all your time drawing, but it does mean that you want to lay down an accurate enough blueprint, as I like to call it, a little blueprint. Okay, this is a car, and again, if we really simplify this down, it's just a box on wheels. Okay, it's just a box on wheels. I mean, this doesn't even look much like a car that I'm drawing here. It looks terrible, but in this scheme of things, it should look like a car once we're done later. There's a bit of shadow underneath, which is great. Remember, these cars are small out the back. They become bigger out the front. I can perhaps bring out another car in the front, and I'll just highlight this to you. There's actually a bus here, but yeah, I might maybe just cut that bus out. So we have another car here, yeah? Windscreen, front of the windscreen, we've got the bonnet or whatever, the bottom part of the car here, the front of the car. We've got a wheel here, perhaps. Oopsies. Should be more to the left here. A bit more to the left, like that. And another wheel here. You'll find that you don't need to make everything perfect. Just as long as it starts looking like a car or whatever you're drawing, you'll be okay. So check that out. That's a car, isn't it? Do you reckon that looks like a car? To me anyway, it doesn't look like it looks like a bit of a funny one, but it is a car. Let me just check what's happening. Yvonne saying 7:30 p.m. here, a lot easier than the 3 a.m. I used to watch you. Yeah, Yvonne, I might do some more around this time then, the next session, because yeah, I must have been doing those time conversions incorrectly, but I also, it's daylight savings here in Melbourne, so that's probably influencing as well. Oh, good. Looks like a lot of you are able to make it at this time. All right, so okay, what am I doing? Yeah, so there's the car, you know, a couple of windows or whatever. No big deal. Sometimes I've been getting into just drawing people on motorcycles lately. Let me try. This could go horribly wrong. You've got this sort of visor of the motorcycle here at the front. Maybe like a light like this, and a wheel at the front like that. Another wheel there at the back. It could kind of work, eh? Yeah, that looks like a person on a motorbike, doesn't it? Sort of. Yeah. Let me just make that head of this person a little bit smaller. You know, in all these larger cities, it's actually more convenient to ride a motorbike. I ride one here in Melbourne, but I also have to be careful because people, you just got to watch out for people. I've been hit off my bike once before, and that nearly turned me off completely riding, but I'm mad enough to get back on again. There we go. Look at that. That's a little scooter or motorbike or something like that. What makes this scene come alive is the people, and you know, you've really got to make sure that you have enough figures and people walking around. You know, there's a car here as well. Look at that side of a car. Simplify that down again. Here's a wheel. There's a wheel. You know, look, it's just a car that's parked outside the building. There it is. Just a car outside the building. We can put more detail in afterwards. There's people sitting in this restaurant and doing stuff in here, and you can really just start overdoing it if you're not careful. But yeah, underneath this building, you notice it's pretty dark. It's pretty dark under here as well. And then you've got some light hitting. I might emphasize the light on this building more. Yeah, that light in that building, and then I'll get some darkness behind it. Nice sort of thing there. Okay, and then the light. How are we going to get this light coming through? This is interesting. Yeah, okay. I'm just putting a sort of line where I want the light to come through. It's probably going to hit some of the bike and maybe some of this car as well. But yeah, we'll see how we go. We've got a car here. There, we've got maybe we can have some people walking around as well. Let's get a person here just walking closer up to the front of the scene here. And this person maybe walking into the scene or something like that. The drawing is not the best this morning, but we will make do. There we go. So just kind of walking into the scene. Maybe he's with a friend. These people just talking in the middle of the road. Very dangerous thing to do. Then we've got... Yeah, I mean, there's this building here to the right, but again, I don't think there's really much else I want to put in here. I mean, we've got like this top part of some sort of part of the building that sticks up like that, and these little bits and pieces you'll find, they kind of just make the buildings look more interesting. I've added another one in here. It's not even there, but it just makes it look like it's not a box, completely box shaped. There's stuff in there. Okay, so remember where the bottom of those buildings are as well. Always remember, like here, I'm just going to quickly draw that out better. There's bits and pieces on the road, these little signs and things, you know, they can be anything. There is a bus back there, but I don't know. I think I might just omit that bus. I don't like it. I don't think I like it there, but you can put it in if you want to. Again, it's just like a rectangle, square slash rectangle, and then runs towards the back like that. So, you know, I'll put it in there just in case. Yeah, sort of down the front like that. What else do we want? Maybe some more figures, some more people. So, you know, play around, use your imagination to just make this scene your own. Okay, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to make it look exactly like the reference photo. Just change it around a little bit and put some figures in where you want. You know, maybe people walking in the distance, and smaller figures in the back also really help to with the perspective of this scene. It makes it look like, you know, it's getting people getting smaller at the back and then larger down the front. So it aids with that sort of depth perception, which is really important. Robin's asking, does the graphite affect watercolors, especially for the lighter colors? Yeah, look, it does. It will potentially show through, but you know, at the end you'll find that, look, you really won't see much of a difference anyhow. Yeah, don't worry too much. I think it's more important that you have a nice, especially as a beginner, a nice little guide to know where to paint. Because if you go too light, it's going to, yeah, be very difficult for you to know where to plan, where to put your lights and darks. That's it, guys. That's just a little drawing I have here. It's getting dark again outside. This is Melbourne for you, so I'm always having to alter this little thing, my light here on the table. Claire's asking, are there announcements for these live sessions on Facebook? I haven't been seeing them, sometimes end up missing them. Yeah, Facebook is one of those weird things, you know, they don't notify. Sometimes a lot of people end up getting notifications, sometimes they don't. I think these days they just want you to buy ads and things like that. So I haven't been letting anyone know that I've been going live as well. It's funny because I have 12,000 followers or something on Facebook, but when I post, barely anyone gets these notifications. So, but yeah, I what would work better is if I actually schedule them in advance and let people know that they're coming up. So I will be doing that more, but just lately I've not been bothered with too much of that planning and all that kind of stuff. It's been just annoying me. I want to just get started painting, create some more content. So guys, we're going to get started with the painting. Let me just zoom in a bit with the camera. That's good. Now, this is my palette here, and we don't need too many colors, okay? If you've got your 3 primary colors, red, green, red, yellow, and blue, that's going to be enough. All right. In fact, I'm going to try to stick to those 3 colors myself, maybe with a few others. I've got to use red anyhow in here. So, first step of this whole process is we want to paint in all the light very, very, very lightly. I'm going to do something perhaps a bit different in this one. I want to make the sky a touch darker, okay, and maybe more grayish, but yeah, to keep the buildings, you know, I want to keep some of the buildings, yeah, I definitely want to keep the buildings really light. So if I make the sky a bit darker, I think that will help to make them kind of pop out more, especially the left side of these buildings. Now, these buildings here to the left, you'll notice that it's almost completely white. There's not much color in them at all. I'm going to put in a touch of kind of like this milky white color. Let me just touch that onto the page and see what we got. Maybe a little bit of yellow. I've got a bit of quinacridone gold here. Okay. Remember, this is going to be the color that shows through right at the end. So little bit of that quinacridone gold, but I don't want it to be too much. Just a tiny little bit. It's like 1 to 2% paint. Okay, if anything. Coming down here, we've got this red awning. I'm going to mix a bit of orange in with the red to just make it more vibrant, a vibrant sort of orangey red color. It needs to also be kind of like lighter. Just dilute this down a bit. Could just make it more orangey actually. Let's have a look. that. Here we are. Just a bit of that red in there. All right. And I like to just, in this stage of the scene, I really like to just make everything just really light. Okay. But then with this awning, I also want to put in a bit of yellow, perhaps. Yeah, just anything to make it more vibrant looking. Okay. All right, so moving on to the top part of the scene, you know, again, it needs a bit of yellow in here, tiny bit of yellow ochre. But it's mostly just, if you think about it, this whole building is pretty much like white. But, you know, the top of it, there's some grayish looking, you know, a bit of gray up here as well. So I can just why not just drop in a little bit of gray, a little bit of lighter gray. At this stage, again, we're just using the lightest values. We don't want any dark colors in here at all. Keep it super light. All right. But I have added on a bit of warmth in here because you do notice, especially on the right hand side of this building, there is some warmth on the right hand side of the building. On the left hand side, yeah, it's a very kind of bright yellow, white / yellow kind of color. On the top, again, some more of this gray. And where have I gotten this gray from? I've just picked it off my palette. Gray is a mixture of all your other colors, so you can often just mix up all the remainder colors on your palette and end up with it. You know, here as well, you can see this rooftop there, these chimneys, and I'm painting the right hand side of those chimneys to make it look like the lights hitting these little bits and pieces. Okay, you really pay attention to the light where it hits some of these buildings. See, because the light source is coming in from the left, and when it's coming in from the left, you're going to get light on the left side of the building and left side of these little structures, and on the right side it's going to have shadows. Yeah, it is a pretty little tricky one, this one actually. Cubs Wins asking, how long have I been drawing, painting? Are you self-taught? For the most part, I'm self-taught. Like, I started painting actually, I was initially a sculptor, so I won a bunch of awards for my sculptures when I was younger, and I ended up just getting into watercolor painting because I love the fluidity of it. I picked it up one day in my art class, and I was actually painting birds at first, and I was hooked. So it took me a while to, you know, stop painting, got back into it after, you know, about a 10-year hiatus. So I think I've been now painting consistently for maybe 8 years or so. Yeah, so it's been a while. Heart Jack says, yeah, tricky one, yep. But, you know, let's give it a crack anyway. Just want to put in some more of this orange and red into this awning here. And one thing I find as well is that this awning has like these kind of darker reds on the right hand side. Can you see it? It's kind of like darker reds. Whereas the left hand side is more like lighter colored, because of course the sun's hitting that side, the light's hitting that side. I'm taking too long to paint all this stuff on the building, so look, let's just do it all in one go. Okay, all in one go. That cut around the people, all these figures and stuff, you know, the bus. Oh, this is a tricky one. Maybe I'll just get the left side of the bus, leave the front of it, you know, here. All right, just a little bit of this color up the top of the buildings. Okay, I'm really hoping the top of that dries, because I want to go into the sky with a bit of darkness, just to test to see if we can get in. Yeah, just to test to see if I can get in some softer shadows on the left-hand side. Not really, like I said, in the reference photo, there's not really any softer shadows in here, so it may or may not work, but I just want to try it anyway. It's one of the things with watercolors is that you sometimes want to try something different, because that's where you develop a particular style, you know. Sometimes style, a unique style comes from your choices. Like some artists like to make very stark and sharp shadows, and that becomes a feature of their work, just the strength of their shadows. Some artists like to focus on the details of things, tiny little details. So you know, you don't know unless you try and you change things up, and you might find that becomes a distinctive aspect of your style. For me, I'm not much of a detail person. I guess, like, unless I'm doing portraits, and I'm actually going to do some portrait classes soon. But a lot of the time, portraiture does not excite me because I find it just very laborious. You have to make it look exactly like the person, and if it doesn't look like that person, then people aren't going to be happy because it's a portrait. So I like having some freedom and to just do what I want, essentially, in the scene, not be bound by completely bound by a reference. Now the ground, I want to put in a little bit of, I do have a little bit of like purplish color here on the palette, what I think is purple anyway. Dilute that down a lot, and let's have a look, because we've got, you know what, I might just probably make it a little bit warmer than I anticipated. Let's just get in that bit of kind of like a warm gray color on the ground. Okay, I still want it to be fairly warm. It's warm kind of gray color because it is asphalt at the end of the day, isn't it? So a little bit of that, but I have mixed some yellow in there to make it more warm, because it is kind of warmish. The quality of the light in this scene you have to really take into account as well. That good. Alrighty. Now everything here in the foreground, I'm probably going to just get this in one go later. All the shadows and the figures and everything like that. But that will be where we kind of stop off. Okay, I can re-wet that section later and, yeah, put some more shadows in if I want to. But that's, I think, a good place to stop. All right. So, guys, we've got in pretty much almost all the light in this scene. One thing I want to do is put in a bit of color now into the sky. And like my intention was before, I was telling you, I want to make the sky a little bit darker. Just as an experiment. You can make it pretty light as well. You can do it as the reference picture, just this nice light cerulean blue. But I just want to experiment and just see how this goes. A bit of grey and a bit of cerulean blue to make myself a kind of, what do you call it? Like a more dull down blue grayish color. Okay, it's almost like overcast, but it's not. Maybe the sun's peaked behind the clouds, but it's still casting a shadow in the foreground. Now that's too dark. I always sort of test on the page and just see. Okay, before that was way too dark. Okay, mix up more of this paint as well. Can we have a bit of, let's see how that is. That's too dark. Okay, something like this, yeah. It's about 50% paint, 50% water. I'm a bit worried to go around some of these buildings, actually. I'm going to dry it off. Actually, there's a few there. Yeah, that should be okay. I can do these buildings fine. Just a little worried that it might bleed into the rest of the buildings, but let's just go give it a crack. Okay, so as I cut around this building, can you see it? My aim is just hopefully to make the buildings pop out more. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but we'll see. Okay, just cut around the buildings. It's just a mixture of cerulean blue plus grey. And yeah, this isn't something I normally do. I'll normally just use cerulean, a very light wash of cerulean. Okay, but maybe it'll work out. Just to bring out the contrast on the building more. And the light. To emphasize the light. And one thing you have to know about light is it's an illusion. It's all about everything that surrounds the light. So you notice how I've made the sky all dark now, or darker. The light of the buildings starts to shine through. It's all just a trick. It's all just a trick of perception. Everything, your mind interprets everything in relation to what surrounds it. You know, if you have an area that's really yellow, but everything around it is also very, you know, saturated in color, the yellow is not going to see much. But if you've got a spot of yellow, like here, a spot of red, it really sticks out because everything around it is kind of duller. Cubs Wins asking, do you always paint with a round brush brand? I do use mainly these mop brushes, these watercolor mop brushes, and they're a brand called Meaden. I just got them over on Amazon a few years back. It's made of squirrel hair. You can use synthetic ones as well. The round brushes I use are just synthetic round brushes. Not sure the brand. What's this one? Mikador? Yep, I've got a few. In fact, I need to replace my brushes soon. How's everyone doing on Facebook and on YouTube? Are you following along so far? Is this all making sense? Is this all making sense? Let me know if I need to kind of explain anything else. Yeah, you know, I have made the sky, like I said, a little bit darker. I'll feather in bits of darkness in there as well in some parts to, I don't know, just emphasize this effect a little more in areas, especially near this main building in the center. I thought, let's just do that a bit. Because the sky, this whole area is wet, you can go over it again and it's not going to be a huge deal. Okay? Alrighty. So, pretty much we've got in all of our lighter values now. I'm going to give this all a dry. And we're going to go in pretty quick. We're going to get in all the darker colors pretty much straight away. One thing you might want to do as well is, you know, you can actually just put in some of these lighter values for the cars and things like that. So, you know, whatever colors you want in here, just pop in there. Yeah, so that's just a bit of coolness. I could leave that car white, for example. This bus, I could put in a little bit of coolness back there for the bus. What else? You know, there's stuff back here. Anything light, make sure you put that in first, because you're not going to be able to get that in afterwards. And if in doubt, guys, just leave it white. Don't need to paint everything in, have colors for everything, yeah? All right, so hair dryer. All right, so next step here is I just want to get in a big kind of shadow that's running over the top of a lot of these buildings. Yeah, a big old shadow running across here. And this is where I want to show you a quick little trick that we can use to get in a softer sort of shadow. So what I've got here is a spray bottle, little spray bottle. And what you can do is actually re-wet part of a scene. Like if I want to just re-wet here, I can just spray it. Why am I doing this? So when I go back in and I drop in maybe a shape of a shadow or something, it will hopefully spread around a little bit. Okay. But with these shadows, guys, I really want to emphasize we're doing this quickly. We don't want to spend too much time on it. I'm going to use a small flat brush, or medium-sized flat brush actually, for this shadow. And you can see here on the side I'm mixing up a bit of color. Okay, I've got some purplish color, so I'm just mixing blue, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of perylene red together, okay, to create a purplish color. But I'm also mixing in whatever's left on my palette. Okay, so let me just drop that in and see how that looks. Probably needs to be stronger. Let me just get some more blue, a bit more red in there. Okay, that looks all right. And see how I have put in a bit of water. It spreads, the shadow just spreads on the side of this building, and you have a softness there, that a soft quality of the light that you just can't get unless you pre-wet that page. Okay, but there are some sharper bits like here, and funny enough, it goes over the top of this shade as well. So let's just emphasize some of that here. I'm just going around this, all this stuff down the bottom, around the car and the person on the bike. Okay, like that there. Okay, and yeah, here we have, of course, this a little bit of shadow on this on the awning. It's so subtle, just something like that. You can barely even notice it, to be honest. Okay, good. So we've got this soft shadow. So that's how you do a soft, shadow shape on a building. Now you've also got some darker shadow shapes, like I might have to flip over to a smaller, just a quick flip over to a smaller brush. You've got some of these bits and pieces on top of the roof like this. Where am I just doing this here? Here again, these tiny little bits and pieces that you see on the rooftop, casting shadows and things. This part of the building also is darker, so you're just trying to create bits of contrast here and there. And I blend it on with the rest of the shadows as well down below. Okay, like that. What else? This is also a bit darker, this part of that building there. So, look at that, guys. Combining that on. Now here we've got this part of the building, and it is a bit of shadow here as well. I'll use the larger brush because it stops me from really like thinking too much, yeah? So I can just get in a basic shadow shape over the right hand side of this building. Okay, running to the right. As well, and if you get a bit of, guys, if you get a bit of this light showing through, just leave it as well. Little bits of the paper that you've brushed through and it doesn't quite cover the entire bit of paper, like these little specks, just leave that there. Just finding a quick way to get in this shadow, this large shadow shape. And you notice here as well, there's a bit of reddish shadowy color on the awning. Okay, it's like a darker red color. Let's do that. There we go. Just blend that in. Okay. Don't know, something like that. I hope this will emphasize the light as well of the awning. Back to the grey. And look how I'm just simplifying this. Yeah, I'm not caring too much about what colors I'm using. It's just a simple sort of grey. I can mix a bit of purple in there. Purple is always a nice color I find that you can mix in with your yellows and things like that. Okay, there. Bit of sharpness running through these top bits of the building. What else do we have? You know, I'm just trying to do this quickly because I know my tendency is to get too bogged down at times with details of stuff. So if I can do this quickly, it'd be better. Okay. And again, it's not really as, you know, there are differences here than the reference. But you can see little bits of shadow here on the right-hand side of these structures. Stuff like that. You're doing all the shadows in one go. And look, I'll make this rooftop here a bit darker as well. Why am I doing this? So I can bring out the lights on this side of the building. This contrasting light and dark in areas, that's what really makes things look more interesting. And one thing I want to do as we move down the page is I want to add more darker values down the base. So I'm going to mix up myself up again, this same mix of red and blue and yellow. Just your three primaries together, which is essentially just going to make you a grey colour. Okay, because underneath we really need to get in some darker colors. There's a lack of darkness, real darkness in this scene, and we can do this all quickly if we're smart about it, while everything's still wet, because then it's going to look more natural. Okay, so here, so this pretty much is kind of like the darkest values of the scene, yeah? The darkest kind of values. Darkest colors. Cutting around these figures, the heads of these figures as well, see? They're just here in the foreground, these two people talking to each other, and you don't want to go over the top of them because it's going to... yeah, it's going to obscure them, and so, yeah, cut around them is what I'm trying to say. Like this, there... Because underneath the buildings, if you look just underneath the buildings, look how dark it is. And that darkness is going to really make the light stand out. Okay, the car, just cutting around the car as well, underneath this awning there. And mind you, there's actually a bit of darker red on this awning in some parts. Let me just get some of that in here. Should have done that before, but doesn't matter. Like there. A little bit of darker red there. It's kind of like the shadow of it. Okay, so continuing on again with this purplish color. You don't have to use purple, I just wanted to use it. Cutting around the awning and the figures and the cars, everything like that. You know, even here on this side, notice how everything, the paint is still pretty much wet in that section, but I can cut around the cars still down the base. Okay, here it's a little bit more difficult, definitely a little bit more difficult, but I've noticed that the shadows are darker in some areas. Like you've got, you know, especially as the paint starts to dry, you will notice, oh, you know, I've not gone dark enough in some areas. Okay. Oh, I've cut around that head of that person, not too much, but doesn't matter. So all this is going to blend in, hopefully, fingers crossed, and create a bit of a softer shadow on the left-hand side, a bit more darkness back there. But on the right-hand side, you know, doing the same thing, just using those darks to cut around the people. I'm just trying to do this quickly, guys, because again, I do spend too much time fiddling around with stuff, and if you do it quickly, I find it ends up looking better as long as you plan it out. Okay, now this was the side of the building that I was telling you about, where I just want to, I want to put in some light hitting off the side. You know, there's a window there. Look, it's like another window here, perhaps. There's a rooftop or something there. There's a little chimney or something there. You've got another window here, window here. You want to leave the light that's just that beautiful warm light on that building, because that's what's going to stick out at the end of the day. I've got a smaller brush somewhere. I've got a little rigger brush, and this rigger brush is going to be great for me to just get in some of the architectural details of the building. So, you know, see how there's these horizontal lines on the building? Look at that. I can just drag the brush across, and we're pretty much done, yeah? Without much effort at all, and without overstating it, because when you start overstating things, you start drawing unnecessary attention to a part of the painting where you want it to be more balanced. You want the viewer to sort of look around the entire scene, unless you obviously you intend to draw attention to this particular section and that's it. Yeah, a little bit like that. I mean, the other buildings have, you know, some details as well. You can just drop in bits, you know, for the what you call it, the floors or whatever like that as well. You can just re-emphasize some of this stuff. It's not really too necessary, guys, because we can, once we do in, I'm going to put in some final darker bits once all this is dried. Okay, but you can see how the lights, you know, we have a general portrayal of the light coming in from the left, strong light. Okay, now let's move this darkness further down into the scene. Okay, we're going to continue this on. And how are we going, guys? If let me know in the chat how you're doing, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask, because I'm always checking and making sure that you guys are keeping up and yet don't have any questions. Cubs Wins asking, do you have any blooms? If so, how do you fix them? Blooms, it's tricky. You can't really fix them. You can dab a bit of tissue paper on the bloom at times, but sometimes that can make it even worse. So, yeah, generally speaking, you want to avoid, if you've got an area that's almost dried, okay, you don't want to put more water into that area. So if you've got an area that is, yeah, you know, like 80-90% dry, the paper's still damp, if you add a drop of water in there, that's going to cause a bloom. So you want to add more paint to water mixture into that section to match the dryness of that area. Okay, another thing you can do is, if you want to go back into an area that has already kind of dried, you can just use a little spray bottle like this. This creates, it disperses the water evenly, so that the water doesn't, you know, if you've got a bit of water here, it's basically just osmosis. The water is going to spread into areas where there's less concentration of water and cause a mess. But if you spray the whole area down with water, then the water is distributed evenly throughout that area, and it doesn't pool and cause paint to come into the area or water to go outside of that area. I hope that kind of makes sense. Mora says, love the muted colors, add so much to the atmosphere. Yeah, you know, I think less is better at times with colors, especially when you're a beginner. I'm really trying to reduce my palette down a lot, because I paint with too many colors before. It makes things look a bit gaudy. When you break it down, you've just got your primaries. You find that's for the most part enough for almost any painting that you need. You're from Scotland, awesome. From whereabouts in Scotland? Would like to go someday. The Highlands look like really beautiful. Nice place to paint. Okay, now, like I said, these cars and whatever, they have a bit of darkness. Can you see just on the wheels? Okay, I'm just picking up a bit of dark underneath the car like that. I didn't do that one so well. Doesn't matter. Shadows maybe running to the right. Yeah, stuff that one up a bit, but no big deal. We'll get on with it anyway. And what I'm doing here is picking up pretty much like the darkest values that I can find. So it's, as long as you've just got the dark color, I mean, I'm using neutral tint, straight neutral tint, and you've got people here in the back as well. See someone just walking there, little shadow on the ground. You'll find that the shadows really will bring out the light in this scene. Okay, here's another car there. Look at that. And, you know, a bit of darkness underneath that car. It doesn't look much like a car if I really think about it, but it's close enough to imply something, you know, car-like shape. Yeah, it just depends how long you want to spend on this, okay? And you want to match, hopefully try to like match the values of the shadows as well. So I noticed this shadow is just a little bit too dark, so I lifted off a touch of paint. Okay, so that none of them are too dark, because I want to make the ones in the front darker. Okay, there's I don't know what this is. They're like road signs and stuff there, maybe. Yeah. So just put in a bit of darkness there. There's another figure here, another person that I was painting before. So let's put in the legs. Okay, a bit of shadow running to the right like that. You know, join that on with the building. What else do we have? We've got a figure here. Look, the legs. Let's put in the legs. Darker. I'm just using a bit of neutral tint, just a dark color. Another figure here that we'd put in before, and the back leg and the front leg here. Just sort of these two people just hanging around in the foreground, and a bit of the shadow underneath them as well. But it's not done yet. I really want to get in a shadow here in the front of the scene. I'm still undecided as to whether to make the shadow softer or not. We'll see. Wheels underneath these, you know, I'm just making this up because it's this, whatchamacallit, this bike or whatever here, right? So maybe a bit of darkness there, and then a bit of shadow underneath the wheels, and casting a shadow to the right like this. Okay, just so that I can still imply that there's light coming over from the left of the scene, and the person behind is a bit darker, the head, because of the, whatchamacallit, the helmet. You know, you still want to leave some light on there, so that's, I reckon that looks a bit like a motorcycle or a scooter. What do you guys think? Kind of, yeah. That's enough. The moment it starts looking like that, I'm going to leave it, continue on with this side of the car, and the shadow of the car running to the right like that. So I probably got casting a wider shadow. Just thinking, yeah, that's okay. Kind of like that. Okay. You're also going to get perhaps a bit of shadow forming on the right side of the car, because again, that light source is coming in from the left, so you might get a bit of something here. Again, I'm just winging this, but want to make that light source consistent, don't we? So we have to make sure that there's a bit of accuracy here. All right, bit of, just dulled down the windscreen a bit there, but still kept the light to the left-hand side. We've got people here. Look, more people. Let's put in some legs for these ones here in the back. You know, here, look, just 3 brush strokes. That's all you need. 3 brush strokes to get in some legs of people. And you start seeing things like, okay, well, maybe I could do with more darkness in some of these windows, because it's not really strong enough. So a bit of darkness there. This stuff in the background, I'm really hoping it's beginning to dry off, because this is where I basically start to go in and put in details for the windows. And guys, this is where things can really go bad if you're not careful. You just have to give it a few little brush strokes. Think to yourself, how can I just simplify this down? And the area is still wet, mind you, it's still kind of damp. So when you do this, you just have to pick up more paint on the brush and drop it in Okay, you might even want to wait till later. I probably should wait till later, but I do like this kind of nice blendy look as well. It kind of pushes the windows back, makes them look less... Oh, see, I stuffed that one up, but it doesn't matter. Okay, just a few little windows and things here. There's, you know, just drop it in. All kinds of stuff here. I'm not concerned with all the detailing and all that. Just a bit of something, yeah, to push them back. I want more emphasis, hopefully, on the figures and bits and pieces here in the front. Okay, you might even dab off a bit of that paint if it's just too much. Okay. Here on the left-hand side, you know, some more windows and stuff as well. You know, just going into those shadows a bit too. The aim for me is a bit of subtlety in here. If you go in and start painting every single little window and looking at all the frames of them and looking at all the balconies, you're gonna lose the beautiful looseness and this big picture stuff, okay, that you see, like this, the shadows, these big shadows, and the large shapes of the buildings. They really make this painting, yeah. And in isolation, look at it away from the reference picture and it will look better. But when you compare this to the reference photo, you really think, oh, this doesn't look anything like the reference. But with loose painting, that's just how it is. Unless you really want to labor over it and spend lots and lots of time getting in all these small details, when you look at this away from the scene, you'll find that it actually works. Okay. All right, I don't think I'll really want to do anything else with those buildings. Like, apart from maybe, you know, you do see some parts here where there's like, you know, see how there's little antennas and things on parts of the rooftop, like here and there. You can do that. You know, you can put in these little tiny bits and pieces. But apart from that, really, guys, there's not a whole lot to do here. Sometimes they just help to, again, connect the sky to the rest of these buildings. Oops, I'm going overboard. You know, I do tend to, you know, a few of these little things here and there, but let's not get too excited, Darren. Just a few chimneys, whatever. It's not a million little. Well, there are actually quite a few little chimneys here now that I think about it, but yeah, don't want to overdo it. Okay. And yeah, you can even darken a bit more around the awning to bring out the light. Still, because this area is kind of wet. It's yeah, there's still a bit of dampness in there, so if I'm a bit cheeky, I can like just feather in a bit more darkness underneath to emphasize this area of the shade, of the, not the shade, the awning, really, so that the light pops through. It's all an illusion because we've got darkness surrounding the light, and that's what allows us to perceive, our brains to perceive it as light. Without darkness, there is no light. Okay, good. Now, last thing before I really call this one done is the shadow across the foreground. What are we going to do? Do we want to make it a soft shadow? Do we want to make it a sharp shadow or a soft shadow? You know, I'm kind of thinking to myself, probably we've got soft shadows there, we've got sharp shadows here. This is like bugging me. Decisions. Probably probably soft. Probably soft. So I'm gonna just like cover the top part of the scene a little bit and spray down the base a little. Don't know. This might not work out, but okay. They're just gonna try it. Spray down the bottom of the scene with a bit of water. Okay. And I'm spraying it down just to the point where it touches the yellow Okay, now I'm going to grab a brush like this. I've got this same paint, this kind of purplish, whatever it is. It's purplish, bluish, grey color. Let's mix this up, and it's going to be pretty dark, but it's not going to be as dark as these shadows here in the back. Let's just try that. More purple. I need a bit more blue and red in there. I just want it to be more exciting, like that. All right, and cutting across, and this, hopefully, a bit more neutral tint. Hopefully we'll leave those sharper shadows up there as well, but maybe some of it will mix together like that. Yeah, why not? It's always important to connect it together. And you know, some of the shadows also are becoming a little bit sharper in areas. Good bit of that. So I've ended up making sharp shadows anyway over on this side, but I want to soften it a bit in a moment. So could be too harsh potentially. Let me just put a little bit of water and see if I can soften this edge of the shadow. It's difficult. Yeah. Ideally, it would have been best if I had just wet a little bit above and just kind of like stopped after a while. You can also just sort of spray into areas to just get it to mix a bit more. Okay, like that. But anyway, doesn't matter. I think that looks okay. Yeah, to have a softer edge on that shadow up the top, kind of like what we've done here with the car. I really like that. You got to make sure you wet that area a bit more first, because if I start wetting that area now with the brush, I'm going to get rid of that light. I've already gotten rid of some of that light, which I don't want to do. So yeah, just make that a bit darker. I think that is almost pretty much it, guys. I'll give it a quick dry. All right, we're almost done, but I want to show you a little trick that can bring out some sparkle in your painting, and you don't want to miss out for this, because it gives it that little bit of oomph that you see in some watercolor paintings, and you wonder, how do they manage to do that? How do they get that light in? I'll go through this. It's using a bit of gouache. It's a bit of opaque watercolor. Now, if you're enjoying this workshop, do me a big favor and click the like button on the video, and also share it with a friend. Share it in a watercolor group, because really helps to get my videos out to more people. So yeah, it doesn't cost you a cent. Really helps me out. So let's squeeze out a bit of this gouache. And another thing also is that I have my Patreon in the video description, and I also have a 70 course program you can go ahead and check out. There's a $2 tier in my Patreon if you want to support me continue to make these workshops each month. get new materials, and also manage the group, because we, run, myself and a few volunteers, we run a watercolor group. It's over 200,000 members. If you're part of that group and you enjoy it, or you just enjoy my workshops, do consider supporting me. It's only $2 a month, and yeah, helps me out a great deal. So anyway, white gouache, bit of white gouache. I'm just using a small kind of flat brush here, and I will pick up a bit of water and just mix that in with my gouache. White gouache is a opaque watercolor paint. It's still watercolor, but it's opaque. And the advantage of this is that you can go over the top of this and get in the lighter colors, the little highlights. Let me know how you're going, everyone. How have you found the session today as well? I'd love to hear some feedback from you. And yeah, if you have any further questions at all, I would really be interested in hearing from some of you. So a little bit of, oops, probably a bit too much there, but a little bit of white there for the top of the motorcycle. Let me dry off the brush a little, and around the left-hand side there, of the bike. It just brings a bit of sparkle back into the scene, but you have to be quite sparing with it. There's a bit of light on top of that car. We can bring back, stuff in the background. I don't even know what that is, but we can put that in. Okay. And kind of just tap it onto areas where you might notice a bit of light come through the scene. Just a bit of light like that, that you might have lost out previously, but be very sparing with this stuff. Like, don't overdo it. I use it to tidy up some areas of these cars and things like that as well, but the figures, people there in the background, you can just drop on a bit of gouache to indicate the head and the shoulders, like that. There's this car, which was, I didn't indicate this so well, so just kind of bring back a bit of that car, heads and the shoulders, and of course this one here, this figure, and maybe the shoulder of that figure, like that. Okay. Let's have a look. What else do we have? We've got another figure here, and there. Drop in a bit of that. Why not put in a bit for the windows as well? Just a little, like a touch of that sparkle here and there for the windows, that you might catch a bit of that light, tiny bit of that sparkle onto areas. It does help. Don't do it for all of them. I mean, just for a few areas like this, but it helps to bring out, again, a little bit more of that contrast in those areas. And, you can imply, I don't know what things are back there, but that, bits and pieces back there. Just, again, trying to, that could be a pole or something. Oh, you know what? I've forgotten to do this tree. I've forgotten to do that tree. We'll get it in. I did say we're nearly done, but this tree, let's just do it with a small round brush. Got some brown. Doesn't matter what color really, as long as you've got a darker color in there. I don't want it to be too much. Where's the other brush? I mean, you don't need to do this tree even if you don't want to. But it has to be pretty dark to come through the right-hand side of that tree anyway. Okay, like that. Got a branch coming off to the right. There's no leaves on this tree. Must be winter or something. Right, look at that. Just a bit of this stuff, these branches coming up into the sky, and yeah, don't know, I think it just helps make the scene look more interesting. Okay, there's a shadow as well that's running behind the tree, like there, something like that. There's another thing you can also do just with the perspective of the scene. We might put a few perspective lines on the ground. It's not necessary, but like a bit of this, like that. Okay. Bit of that, those perspective lines running across the ground. Don't know. That might have worked okay. Yeah, that tree again, there's like some light on the left side of that tree that I'll have to put in with the gouache because I've missed it. I've missed the opportunity before, but just, you see here, just a bit of this yellow on the left side to imply some of that light maybe coming through the tree, hitting the left-hand side of the tree. Yeah, no big deal, just something like that. Okay. Coming down to the ground. Too much. I don't want it to take over the rest of the scene, so we just have to be careful with this. More brown. Okay. Yeah, let me know how you've been going, everyone, and how you found this session today. I've actually really enjoyed myself painting this scene. It was challenging. Definitely challenging, but yeah, I had fun. Hope you did too and learnt a lot. I will be running more of these in the future. All right. I think that's almost, yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest of this is just touching up things here and there. I can put in, even for example, if I want to put in a bit of color for this figure, a bit of blue, we can do that here. Okay. Like that. Little things like this start to make sense after you finish the rest of the scene. Little touch-ups, and you know, in this car, for example, a bit of darkness on the right-hand side of that car I thought might be good. Good. Let's take off the tape and see how we're at. Heart to Jack says, I probably would have given up and thrown all my paints in the street already. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, always remember that it's, even if it doesn't work out, even if the painting doesn't work out, you know, you've got a bit of brush mileage, you've got a bit of practice from this. And I didn't just pick up a brush randomly and was able to do this after a few tries. It was after many, probably at least hundreds of tries. So try to enjoy the process, yeah? And don't be too hard on yourself. Oh crap, I've ripped the corner. Doesn't matter. Cubs says, thank you for the great lesson. Do you ever use pen? Yeah, I do use pen. It's called line and wash, or pen and wash, pen and ink. But nowadays I'm trying to just stick to watercolors a bit more, because I'm a bit lazy to draw stuff in pen before I can, you know, before I spend a lot more time on it. So Robin says, great picture as always. Sky color really does make the building stand out more. Yeah, so I think that was a good decision. Just darkening that sky just a teeny bit more, using more muted colors, less of this highly saturated blues and reds. The most saturated colors that we have in here is a bit of red, maybe a bit of blue on this side, and that's it. And so you notice that your eyes are just drawn to sections where there's higher color saturation, okay? But then everything else looks more cohesive. It's not too overwhelming. And this is the type of style that I'm starting to lean more towards. You know, if you look at a lot of my older paintings from a year ago, I use a lot of very vibrant colors, but I'm going for a more understated kind of look now in my paintings, and a more minimalist look in terms of less colors. So there's still a few of you watching. Yeah, again, if you like the video, or if you're watching along later, please click the like button and share it with a friend or share it with a watercolor group. Helps me to get it out to more people. If you have questions afterwards as well, feel free to ask. I'll get back to you. And remember, check out my Patreon. If you like these workshops, there's a $2 support tier that really helps me out, allows me to continue running these things. I'm going to restructure my Patreon as well, because I've got all these courses on there, and it's really almost too much value that I'm putting out with those courses. I sell them on different platforms, so I'm actually going to restructure my Patreon completely. I'm going to take off those courses, but for people who have already paid and subscribed to that tier, I'm going to just grandfather those courses for them. But I'm restructuring it essentially to take off a lot of those courses because it's too much. Just put on like the main popular ones that I find people enjoy. But yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. I'm going to grab some lunch now. Thank you all for coming along, and I'll see you in the next one.